Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the CMU Sport Management Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Sandel, and today is episode 2 of our Women's History Month special, where each podcast of this month we are having on women alumni from our department on each podcast. Joining me today is Taylor Dawson and Montana Souder. Taylor is a manager of the Titans House Experience, and Montana is Premium Partnership Success Coordinator with the Minnesota Wild. Thank both of you guys for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, this is the first episode of the Women's History Month special was our longest episode. It was like 50 minutes long, so I'm not expecting this to go that long today. It kind of just happened to go that way. The first thing I talked to this about Taylor beforehand, but right now in Michigan, we're having like our best weather day right now. How's the weather in Minnesota and Tennessee for you guys right now?
It's great here.
I was just telling Kyle, it's probably our best day so far. It's 71, partly cloudy, so super nice.
Yeah, still colder in Minnesota. It's like 60s today. Gonna get colder this week, but spring is right around the corner. That's all.
Exactly. I think we're done with snow for the year.
Yeah.
I might be jinxing it, but hopefully we're done with that.
Here in Minnesota, you cannot, we have not put the shovel away, the salt, anything. Like, it stays in the porch until it's at least 70s for a week. You can never guarantee it.
So the first thing I like to usually start off these podcasts with is taking you guys back before you were at Central Michigan, and that was maybe when you were in high school or maybe at a previous university. What was the inspiration to come to Central Michigan specifically for sport management?
Yeah, I can go first if you don't care, Montana.
No.
Okay, so I transferred to Central. I went to Oakland Community College for my first 2 years. When going into college, I kind of thought I was going into a different route, but ultimately decided not to go that route and do the front office side of things. So I was touring a bunch of different places, and ultimately, as soon as I stepped on campus, it just immediately felt at home. And that's something that's huge for me wherever I go, is I want to make sure that I feel good where I'm going and feel good about the organization and just feel like home.
Yeah, so I'm one of the sport management kids who kind of knew I was going to do it from the start. So I actually had been going to Central since I was a little kid. I did a lot of cheer clinics up there. I was a cheerleader my whole life. And so I always really, really was drawn to CMU. It was a home away from home for me. I knew in high school I wanted to kind of do something business related. I did an education for employment class my senior year of high school, where I got connected with people who work for the Kalamazoo K-Wings and kind of knew from that moment that working in sports is really cool, and saw that Central had a sport management program and kind of never looked back.
So when you guys first got to Central Michigan, did you have any ultimate end goals where you wanted to get to in sport? And if you did, how did those change, if they did change, when you were at Central?
Yeah, I would say my mind changed a million times. I think it's kind of looking back on it now, like freshman year, I knew exactly what I was going to be. And then 2020 is when I graduated. So during COVID, but I just remember being like, oh my God, I'm 21. How am I supposed to know what I want to do for the rest of my life? And learning to be flexible with myself and being open and engaging in new interests was super important. I think I don't really remember what exactly I wanted to be when I came to Central. I knew it was something sales or event management related. Partnerships was super far away from what my end goal was. And then by the time I ended my career, it was either ticket sales or partnerships 100%. So, but I could have told you I was going to be a million things all within the sports world, because there's so many different job titles. So,
yeah. So going into college, I actually wanted to do athletic training for a pro sports team. Quickly realized the medical field is not for me. So just kind of was researching on different aspects of the sport industry and what degree would be the best for me to get. Had no idea sport management was a degree. And so when I transferred to Central, I knew I wanted to do sport management, and I minored in event management, and it's been pretty consistent that way throughout my whole career after I realized I did not want to be in the medical field. So I love it.
I love how you bring up Montana, you're 21 and how am I supposed to figure out what I want to do? Because that's like basically me right now. I'm
Yeah.
in that same spot in college where it's like you come to college and it starts off and you think that you can plan everything out. And then just like that, you get to the
Yeah.
end and it's like, now what do I do? And I think that that's good to hear that some
Yeah.
people that have gotten through that were in
And
the
I
same
definitely
place.
I wouldn't consider it. I feel like people would think it's cold feet, and I wouldn't consider it cold feet. It was just like, I was interested in so many things and I knew my talents could take me so many places. And um, I think oftentimes you start interviewing for jobs and people want to make sure you're serious about the position, which is 100% true. You should be very serious, especially when you're going into sales. Like, you should be determined to make sales. But it was always hard because I was like, I like selling. I like being this person who can really contribute revenue to a company, but I also like to be creative. So you'll figure it out at the end of the day. But it is absolutely okay to feel that way. It's not cold feet. You know what you want to do. You just got to try a couple of things to really figure out what your career is going to land in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate that advice. Thank
Yeah.
you. So moving on, continuing to when you guys were at Central, what was some experience that you guys got at your time at Central? That can be, in the actual like athletic department or with SMA, or it can be internships. I saw that Montana, you were with the Battle Creek Bombers when you were in college, and Taylor,
Mhm.
you're with the United Shore Baseball League. So what was some experiences that you guys got in college, and maybe what was most beneficial for you?
Yeah, I think Montana can agree and feel free to disagree. But the sport management program at Central is so hands-on,
Yeah.
and you're constantly working on projects to prepare you for opportunities. And those really do like group projects. And everyone loves a good group project, but that's honestly a lot of what we do is group projects. Like, you're working in a group, you're working on a team. Luckily, we got to experience a bunch of different internships, and I was on SMAC, as Montana also was. We were both in SMA, and so just all the programs that you have at Central really do prepare you for the sport industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Without even going into like internship experiences, like what you do at Central, you can put on your resume, right? Like, for Mumford's class, we did the Kid Cancer Combine, which is a thing that my group came up with and ultimately was picked as our fundraiser. Like, that one on my resume immediately, because it's such a cool story to tell. Like, everyone in college has different circumstances. If you have to work a job, to pay your bills, whatever, like, your classes are enough to build out your resume. All you need to be able to do is tell a story about it. I was on the board for Sport Management Association. I started as our SGA rep and then moved to president. So obviously that was a good experience. Leading peers is always, I would say, is probably more challenging than being in a traditional like hierarchy, but the class projects are super important. Like, take them seriously. People pay attention to Central Michigan students. The teams in Michigan pay attention. So that's kind of my spiel about Central. Internship experiences, and Taylor, you can tell me if I'm wrong. We both started in minor league baseball. Minor league baseball absolutely tests your strength of if you want to work in sports, because it's the hardest, longest summer you'll ever have in your life. It's 3 really intense months. If you can survive it, you'll be golden to work for any team.
Yeah.
After that, I've done a couple of internships. Milwaukee Bucks was in 2019, which was a sales internship. Learfield I did through my junior and senior year, which is a partnership activation. And then Central Michigan sponsored me to go to the Mount Union Conference, which is also a sales conference. So all of those had huge impacts and are why I'm where I'm at today. But I could talk at length about every single internship. Each one has its own impact for me, but Central is the start and why I got those internships.
Yeah, and I can kind of touch on like my internships, but with United Shore Professional Baseball League, like Montana said, like, you're working every weekend all throughout the summer. So it's not for the weak, but ultimately that definitely just shows you like how much determination and passion that you have for this industry. Ultimately, having my internship, I was a sponsorship intern, and not saying that I won't ever put it back on my plate, but just after it's neat seeing what goes into the sponsorship and doing the contracts and integration into actual game day of the partners. But doing that internship really made me think, oh, I don't think I want to do partnerships.
Right.
And I think that's a huge thing with internships is that's your opportunity to learn and figure out, is this something I like to do or is this not? And it turns out just as of right now, it is not what I want to be doing. Candidly. I also had the opportunity to intern for the Kansas City Chiefs. I was their fan experience intern, and that's something where I left for the whole. I was there the whole season, and so getting to just see it come to fruition from training camp all the way to the Super Bowl. That's something that no one really gets to do in their career. So I'm super lucky that I got to witness that and figure out I do like the fan experience. I do like doing the events for our passionate fans. And so that's kind of what pushed me to kind of go this route.
Yeah, I feel like every guest that I've had on this podcast, when they talk about their internships, it's kind of a lot of the same. Like they liked it because it helped them show what they liked and didn't like about sport, and I think that that's so important to find that out early. And the same thing I always hear about minor league baseball too. I think that is awesome. I'm with the Loons right now, so on a different side,
Sure.
not on a different side of the sport management thing, but still, it's definitely not nerve-wracking, but it's just exciting. So, so do you guys have like a favorite moment or a favorite memory of when you were at Central Michigan? At least this can be a class thing, an event thing. Like, is there something that sticks out to you? Like, that was what I loved about Central the most.
Honestly, the friendships you make out of this, like
Mhm.
we have group chats, we're constantly trying to hang out with each other even though we're all over the place. So really it's like the relationships that you make in your classes really just extend outside of that. And I think that's my favorite part of Central is that you leave having so many friends and rooting for each other and happy that they're growing, even if it's not in the sports industry. Like it's just so nice to have that bond with people.
I've gotten the chance to work with 2 CMU alumni after graduating college, which is also just such a super fun and cool experience. Like to be in a different city and have 2 alumni who I graduated college with, and we all could just like bug the whole office by saying fire up chips. And like we just have a background where we understand each other. So that's honestly post college one of the coolest things. It's so hard to think of one specific memory.
Right.
Again, I have such good friends. Like I'm coming back to Michigan in May for a wedding of someone I met at my college orientation who was in all
That's
of my
super
classes
cool.
all 4 years. So like that's just had such an impact on me. It's so cool to see everyone growing. Yeah, I think group projects had to be the funnest because you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. Like you're just sitting in a group saying the wildest things and no one says no. And it's really fun to look back at those and be like, I still have some of them in my like Google Drive. I'm like, I cannot believe we actually thought this was attainable.
Yeah, that's kind of me with like SMAC, the conference, just
Yeah.
kind of seeing that through. And Montana knows like that was a lot of hard work and determination. And just to see that come to fruition, all of us working together, and it was incredible. And I think that's my favorite event. But my favorite moment is the friends that you make.
Yeah.
I love the no one says no in group projects. That is the truest thing I've ever heard.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There was one group project we did. It was like a warm up in Adler's class, and we're talking about doing something with minor league baseball. We're like, oh, we're gonna bring like this huge music artist, and Adler's like, that's not realistic. We're like, who says no? You never know.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. So moving on, we can talk about now, moving on from Central Michigan, getting into your guys' current positions. Obviously, there's been some time between, when you're in college to now, but how did the both of you get to where you currently are today? Obviously, I saw like Montana, you were with the Timberwolves before you were with the Wild. We talked about this beforehand, Taylor, but you just started a new position with the Titans. So kind of take me through that path of how you ended up where you currently are.
Yeah, I can start.
Yeah.
So graduated during COVID. Obviously, it took a little bit of time to get back into sport. The reason why I got back is through my network. I'm one of those old school people. Your network is super important to you. And basically, during COVID, I was a part of this NBA virtual internship because I had connections in the NBA. I was interested in working in sales for the NBA. So I continue to stay connected through two managers who manage inside sales teams, directors who overlooked inside sales teams. And my previous boss, Michaela, called me saying that they were done with their hiring freeze and they were looking to interview me. And so that's how I got back to sports. And I was with the Wolves for just shy of 2 years in a ticket sales position. Really fun and exciting times. And I enjoyed sales, but I knew deep down that I wanted to take a chance on myself and to do something a little bit more creative and to challenge myself to work across departments. The thing about ticket sales is that you are your own boss. You make money. And like at the end of the day, yes, you're on a team, but like the only person who sold was me. And I was the only person who added money into my revenue book. So I was just looking to challenge myself a bit more. This Minnesota Wild position came up and I was just like, might as well give it a shot. And this is the first job I've ever gotten where I didn't know anybody in the organization. None of my connections knew anybody. I just interviewed the hell out of it, really sold my story as to why I had gone back and forth between ticket sales and partnerships and why my sales experience would impact this position. And now I've been here for just over a year. It is a new position within the NHL. So essentially I sit on our corporate partnerships team and I oversee any new partners that also purchase hospitality. So like Pentair is one of my partners. They spend a good amount of money on a sponsorship contract as well as a full season annual suite lease. So I oversee both of those positions as well as help service every single annual suite and loge account that we have at Xcel Energy Center. The reason why the league wanted a position like this is because as revenue mines change, they want to, tap into every dollar that's possible, and having someone who can speak fluently between corporate partnerships and annual suite sales products was really important. So it's been a fun challenge. I came into a position that literally didn't have a box around it, and I've gotten to make it my own. I've seen my impact happen almost immediately. So excited to continue to see how this position grows, but it's been a really fun, full-time career so far since I've graduated.
Yeah. So I ended my internship with the Kansas City Chiefs as COVID was kind of full swing. So I applied to tons of jobs, but ultimately came across these 3 positions at the Titans. I used my network. I let her know that I was interested in the role and that I'd be applying. And so I ended up going through that interview process. I went through the interview process for a service team position, so kind of servicing accounts. Ultimately did not get that role. However, the conversations I had was great. At least I felt like it. And Steph Atkins, she was on my panel, and she reached out just letting me know like, hey, loved the conversation we were having. Would you be interested? We saw that you applied to the ticket office specialist job. I'm hiring for this. Would you want to go through the interview process for this role? And I said, of course. So basically, the world works in mysterious ways. And ultimately, I ended up getting that role. I moved to Nashville in a week, and it was honestly my dream job since I started, and I've just been able to continue and continually grow and learn from everyone here. I've had a lot of great opportunities come my way in this role, and so now switching it up a little bit after 3 years, but getting to focus on helping the sales staff with their new PSL sales center, which is called Titans House, as they go on this journey to be a new part of Titans history and sell new Nissan Stadium.
So you guys both are you guys both from Michigan originally?
Yeah.
So obviously you've moved a decent amount away from home, from Michigan. everyone kind of has their own perspective on this, but how difficult was that to leave, maybe your family or just leave your friends that were here in Michigan and pursue your career in a different state across the country?
Yeah, I can start.
Yeah, you should start.
You're good. So I'm very lucky that my parents are very supportive of this journey. We've known from the start that obviously there's only 32 teams in some of these leagues, and even less in some. And so just knowing that, kind of sitting them down and having that conversation of, like, I will be moving, like it's like a tough love. It's like a tough love conversation of like, I don't want to leave you. I want to be here. I want to be here just throughout this whole entire journey, but that's not necessarily, the end all be all.
Right.
So again, very lucky that my parents are supportive throughout this whole entire journey. They've been literally my rock through all the moving. I don't know what I would have done without them, honestly. So very lucky in that way. But it's just having those hard conversations. And yes, they are hard, but your families ultimately should support you in the end, because it's what makes you happy.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm a huge, like, you have to be happy in your life to be good in your career. Like, if you're unhappy, you don't have the support system you need, it's really hard to have a successful career, especially when professional sports can be so demanding. Your schedule is insane. My story is a little bit different. My husband, my then boyfriend, now husband, is from Minnesota. So
okay.
I moved to a state where we still had a ton of family. I've met more and more of his friends, and they've become my mutual friends too, where I genuinely enjoy hanging out and spending time with those people. So it's obviously hard. It's a 10-hour drive away to see my parents, and we make it work. But I was so lucky to have another family that I can just absolutely join in, tag along, and, build my life. I was having a call with my mom the other day, and I was like, absolutely, like, miss being home, but I'm experiencing things that you guys have gotten to experience already. Like, I'm living out my mid-20s and doing new things and experiencing things that I didn't think I would get to. So it's a ton of fun. I absolutely love where my life is at now, and I think it only makes what I do for the Wild even better.
Yeah, I think that most people in sports kind of have that realization that eventually you're going to have to, at least you're going to have that conversation with your close family and friends. Like, the time is coming. So, so obviously in sports, there's not a typical day to day. Everyone knows that every day is not the same. So this question I'm asking is definitely, like, take it with a grain of salt. Obviously both of you work in professional sports. So how does your responsibilities of your career differ from in season to the off season?
Yeah, we're in season right now. So I always tell people my workload's really heavy the week before a game. And then once game day happens, I've kind of passed everything off to marketing departments, game operations, my sales rentals teams, all of that. But obviously game days are just busy. You're working, typically games don't start till 7. You're not getting home until 11 o'clock at night. My position right now is really just a lot of being at games to shake hands, introduce myself, have conversations, build relationships. I don't do any like in-game selling or anything, just literally showing face, building relationships with my clients, but also with our premium staff. And so we do that for 42 home games, 40 some home games. And then off season is a lot more. I write all of our contracts and help along with our renewal meetings. It's always a ton of review of what went well during the season. What value can we provide people? How do we improve our value opposition and our benefits? And how do we improve gifting? There's so many different conversations that are had as a review over summer, as well as just working on larger ideas that take a bit more time. And as soon as October hits, any big project you thought was going to get done before the season is going to get done next season.
Yeah, this one's a little hard just because I'm kind of going through the transition period right now, and like that new position. We're still kind of,
Right.
working all the kinks out, but I'll kind of go what I've previously done. So we're in off season right now. We're prepping for all next season. So we're discussing budgets, we're discussing events that happen, ways that we can improve. And similar to Montana, we're working on gifting, and that's a whole new process with the new stadium too involved. So our team is working on that, which is super exciting. But on it's pretty much like Montana said, the week prior is just like prepping all week long. And then after the game happens, you put in all your kind of things that happened at the game that need to be fixed or addressed before the following game, the next game. And that happens on Monday, Tuesday, usually after games.
Yeah, this worked out perfectly because we have, one of you's in season, the other one's in off season right now. So good perspectives there. So obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is our Women's History Month special. So specifically for you guys as women that work in the sports industry, what are some challenges that you either currently face or have faced in the past as women?
Yeah. So I have two. One of the challenges that I face is just I'm naturally a pretty quiet person, so I'm perceived as like softer. Therefore, I'm kind of afraid to like advocate for myself. So that is something I'm working on. But another aspect that I think everyone can kind of attest to is just that work-life balance. It can be a challenge to manage, and candidly, it is hard. That's something that has been my goal for the last year, is just trying to figure out that perfect balance of work, friends, and family. And it's going to be a constant work in progress. So that's just something you kind of have to take into account as a challenge going into the sport industry alone.
Yeah, I think similar to Taylor, I think the biggest thing, and more so in college, I don't feel it as much anymore, is just like I could act the exact same as one of my male counterparts, but it always gets flipped differently, whether it's like, I don't know, it's just emotional responses, right? Like I'm someone who wears my heart on my sleeve. I'm really passionate. I have no problem standing up for myself, but it just comes off a little bit differently than if one of our male counterparts were going to do it. But one of the biggest like piece of advice in the box that I stand on is, I take up space and I don't really care about my gender when it comes to the workplace. Like I'm here because I'm really talented at what I do. I can sell, I can stand in a room of CEOs and not be afraid. And that's why I'm where I am at. I think it took me a very long time because there wasn't enough female representation in sports, and there still isn't. It took a long time for me to feel comfortable taking up that space and being like, it doesn't matter that I'm a female in sports. Like I'm just a really good sales professional. I'm a really good this and that. But if you don't have people who look like you, sound like you, do what you want to do, it's really, really hard to even picture yourself ending up there.
So just a couple more things for you guys. First off, and this one can be tough to think about. It was definitely like the toughest question of the last one. What has been your favorite moment of your career so far? I know this was a tough thing, so I asked favorite moment of Central. But is there something that sticks out from your time at Central Michigan to now that was the best part of my career so far?
I'm gonna go first because Taylor's gonna beat me. I
already know what Taylor's.
I know what Taylor's gonna say. I would have to say probably my favorite moment in my career is the Timberwolves play-in win in 2022. It was their
Yes, I remember that game.
I don't know the history totally. I'm forgetting it, but it was just such a cool moment. Like it was so meaningful for the city. It was so meaningful for the fans. It was so meaningful for like my immediate family. Like it was just so cool to watch it happen and get to see the history happen, and how excited, there's a picture on my phone of my husband hugging his brother because they got to go to the game and they just couldn't believe the Wolves were going back to the playoffs. And it's just my favorite thing ever, and just a really cool moment to see it come together. And then again, I was going to say working with some CMU people when I was in Minnesota at the Wolves was just so neat. Like it's been one of the coolest experiences to see how far CMU people go, and that I never thought I'd have the chance to work with people again, and let alone two others. So it's been a blast.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I actually have two. One's a current favorite moment, and one is a past favorite moment. The current one is just getting to witness the new stadium deal passing just through the city and just seeing it all come to fruition. It's amazing to see how just everyone communicates and is looking to do what's best for the city of Nashville. Every aspect of the new stadium is gearing up to make sense for the city. So just to see everyone's hard work and determination get approved and how everyone in the organization supports one another. Teamwork is one of our huge, biggest core values. And seeing that happen and seeing it get approved and be a part of Titans history, it just makes my heart happy to see there's just everyone's hard work and determination show and be here. And now we had our great groundbreaking, and we're building a new stadium. So that's something that's really just a perfect moment right now, a dream moment. And then everyone's going to get mad at me if I don't say this, but it's not something everyone gets to experience in their career. And I am just very, very lucky that I got to experience it in my first season, but just winning the Super Bowl with the Chiefs was crazy. Just getting to see everyone's hard work throughout the entire season and getting to just witness and be rewarded for that. Ultimately, that's the goal of everyone. And so getting to see that and be on top, it's just something every team hopes and dreams to do. And I am one of the lucky ones that got to witness that and be a part of that. So
Yeah, I saw the pictures for the new Titans stadium, and it looks phenomenal. That it looks like it's going to be awesome.
yeah.
So last thing I have for you guys, and is how I usually like to wrap up every episode. And you guys have kind of already gone into this a little bit, but what is the biggest piece of advice that you would have for current students and specifically for the future women of sports? I know Montana kind of already got into that, so it can be a repeat, but what is the biggest piece of advice for you guys?
Yeah. My biggest piece of advice is just be yourself. Don't change your personality to be what the organization or job wants you to be, because you'll just set yourself up to feel like you need to put on a facade every day, every time you go to work. They need to love you for you. And if they're not willing to take you on as yourself, they don't deserve to have you on their team. You're going to be working long hours with these people. So you don't want to be stuck being someone you're not. Because ultimately you are a big family. I know it's super cliche to say, but you just spend your entire time with them. And so you don't want to have to put on a fake personality or anything, because then you'll just have to live up to it every single day.
Yeah, that's always a piece of interview advice I have, is just be yourself. Because when you're trying to answer questions that when you're not actively listening and you're just answering questions for what you think they want to hear, people see through it so fast. You just need to tell your story. You just need to be yourself, because at the end of the day, that's who you're going to show up to work as. It's everything that Taylor said. So I always take it, your job, for your interview advice, everything, be who you are. Like I already said, take up space, be confident in yourself and, reach out, ask questions, be curious. I think I always think being in college is a time you have an excuse to say, hey, I'm a student. I'm really curious about what your job looks like. I would have not known anything about the sport industry if I didn't reach out to people and be vulnerable and just say, hey, I have no idea what you do every single day. Can I schedule 15 minutes with you to ask you a few questions? It goes a lot further than people think, and absolutely take advantage of that. CMU alumni are great. I'll always jump on the phone. I'm sure Taylor would do the same. I wish more people reached out, because everything's different. You're seeing Taylor and I are both in new positions and things are changing really, really fast. So those are just a few of many pieces.
Well,
Yes,
hopefully some
100%.
students see this and reach out to you guys now. So, well, awesome. Thank you guys for joining me for this week's episode. And thank you guys for listening for another episode of the CMU Sport Management Podcast.